I always used to think that my nervous system would need, nervous system needs to be able to touch, close to 100% in order to adapt and to get that stimulus in order to get stronger. But for that wasn't the case here. So I just found that, you can compete in this sport. You don't need anybody but yourself. And like, it's just self-discipline. It's just hard training. And yeah, that just suited me really well. Make sure to control everything around training. Like, I think a lot of the secrets lie in good supplementation, good sleep, good nutrition, like those kind of things. You can't really outwork, a bad diet or less hours of sleep. So it's key to ensure that the day is structured as good as possible for that.
Welcome to this new episode. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsor for the podcast, Moxy Monitor. If you've been following my work, you know that the Moxy is a tool that I use a lot for testing, but also for everyday training and coaching. For those who don't know about the Moxy Monitor yet, it's a NIRS device that measures muscle oxygen saturation and blood volume in real time. It's a non-invasive sensor that is placed on the skin and can be worn during any training or sporting activity. Motocross riders and climbers wear it on their forearms. Hockey players on the ice, swimmers can wear it in water. I've used it to test rugby players, CrossFit athletes, endurance athletes, and more. The Moxy allows you to individualize work and rest periods, optimize load, reps and sets, identify training thresholds in real time, and even correct movement based on what the data shows you. You can also use the Moxy Monitor to determine an athlete's energetic limiting factor and their individual training zones. Using this process, I can now target the athlete's limiter with precision in order to improve their performance without adding unnecessary volume to their program. You can view and collect the data on your Garmin watch, and can also pair the Moxy with other physiological testing products such as the VO2 Master, Pnoe, and Cosmed VO2 systems. The Moxy is a product I've been using for many months with great success, and I highly recommend it to any coach who's interested in digging a little bit deeper on the physiological side of health, fitness, or performance. You can use the coupon UPSIDE at checkout for a 5% discount on moxymonitor.com/shop. That's UPSIDE, UPSIDE, for a 5% discount. With that said, let's get into the show. Hey, André, we're live. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure. I've had a few people raise their hand after I mentioned that I was going to have you on and say, hey, he's my coach. He's awesome. Looking forward to listening to him. So it's great to chat with you, and definitely having someone with your experience, both as an athlete and as a coach in the CrossFit world is really interesting to me. So maybe for those who don't know you yet, can you maybe talk a little bit about yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, my name is André. I would like to categorize as an elite CrossFit athlete, or at least aspiring to be. And I coach next to that. And I have an online business called No Shortcuts, and that's individualized and generic programming. And it's pretty much for all levels of ambition. So when I'm not training, I'm programming. And when I'm not programming or training, I'm just with my fiance and our little puppy. And yeah, that's pretty much life.
Nice. Where do you guys live?
We live in Denmark. We live 1 hour south of Copenhagen, and we live in like a big country house. It's super nice like that. We can have a big training facility here, both for myself, but also to host training camps and seminars and just training gatherings for some of the crew, some of the local crew, and as well for the international crew once COVID restrictions are loosening up a little bit.
Okay, that's good to hear. How's your CrossFit season going so far?
So far, so good. We've been through the CrossFit Open, which is the first stage, and from there, top 10% move on to the CrossFit quarterfinals, which is the second stage. And that went super well. I finished 7th in Europe, in that region, in the European region, which is now split into two kind of competitions. So we were 60 athletes that advanced from the top 10% from the quarterfinals onto semifinals. And then these 60 athletes has now been spread into two competitions of 30 each. And that's happening on the 11th, 12th, and 13th of June. So it's coming up pretty soon, which is exciting. And obviously the goal is to finish inside the top 5 in the competition I'm going to, and that means a game spot, which is something I haven't attained before. So definitely hope that this is the year I get through that.
Is it top 5 in each of the 30 that go through? Is that it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's different from region to region, but in the European region, it's top 5 from each of the competitions. And if you don't finish inside top 5, there's the number 6, the number 7, and number 8. They advance to something called the wild card round, which is 2 weeks after. And I think it's top 2 from the wild card round. So it's like 6 athletes total from Europe will meet some other guys from Africa region and America and all that, and then top 2 from that will advance. So there's it's pretty cool that there's that opportunity as well in case something goes wrong or yeah.
How have you found the workout so far? The competition overall, the format and the content?
I think it's been good. CrossFit are doing what they can. It's not been easy with the pandemic, but I think they've been doing especially compared to maybe like the leadership that's been the past couple of years. It seems like the ship is going into a really nice direction, especially for us athletes, and they're giving I think they're doing their best, and I think the programming has been completely fine. I never really put too much thought into whether I like or not like the programming, because it's not really up to me to decide what the best test is. So I can decide whether I think the programming I'm doing for people is good or bad, but I can't really decide whether Dave Castro if we think the same. So, but I think so far it's been good, and I'm happy with my performance, and I've realized some holes and some weaknesses that needs extra work, and that's always nice, because then you really have a second chance to prepare for that for the next competition.
Did anything in the workouts surprise you per se? I remember, years back when one day I think it was a regionals that was like dumbbells only, and everybody was so used to barbells, and that took everybody by surprise. I feel like as years go on, there's less and less opportunities for blind spots, because now you guys are always kind of, very well rounded, let's say. But is there still something that surprised you this year in terms of something that was in the one of the workouts, or a volume of a certain movement?
Yeah, like there was like a chipper with a lot of GHC sit-ups and a lot of pistols, and I wasn't really that prepared for. I thought I was prepared, but I was definitely not prepared and conditioned enough to handle that much volume, and I wasn't able to move fast enough. And looking back, that's just something I really need to either should have tried to move fast. Like on the pistols, I was just too deliberate and too slow, and I can be like that sometimes, which is something I need to work on. Sometimes I need to embrace the monger a little bit and just get the work done rather than like making it look pretty. It just needs to be efficient, and I think that was one flaw for me in that workout. And then the second flaw was just that I just lack volume on those GHC sit-ups. I had been doing them every week, but seeing how a lot of the other top males were getting through that workout, that caught me off guard, and that definitely is something that won't happen again.
Mm-hmm. How do you approach those different stages, the open, now quarterfinals, semifinals, which is a new kind of format from what we've seen in previous years? When you approach those kind of competition days or weeks, do you have special tapers that you go through? Is it training as usual with a little bit less volume? How do you manage all that?
I mean, it's different for every stage. For the open, nothing really changes. Like training is pretty much as usual. I just hit the workouts once on a Friday or on Saturday, and then I try to keep training as normal as possible. It's especially with this year's open, where top 10% would advance. It doesn't mean at all that I'm not taking the open serious or anything, because I take everything very serious. It's just I know that there's bigger obstacles down the road that I need to prepare for, like such as a workout with lots of volume for GHC sit-ups, or more complex stuff. And so I think that the season you kind of peak for where you think your limiter will be, and I definitely think my biggest limiter will be in the semifinal, and that's where I really need to be in my peak shape, and how that looks exactly it's not so easy to explain. But I guess in like from quarterfinals to semifinals, I think I can explain that in brief terms. It'd be like, I look at what went wrong, what didn't go optimal, what went good, and then I build that training block leading up to the next stage with everything in mind, that what can come up and all of that. And then I go through like, so we had 8 weeks. So the first 4 weeks is like a base phase for me, where I don't mix a lot of things, where I primarily try to focus on building each of the elements up individually to make them eventually stronger when I put them together. So my weightlifting is more, it'll be like capacity, just a lot of barbell cycling for itself, a lot of heavy lifting for itself. For the gymnastics, it'll be just gymnastics mixed with like monostructural exercises in a very controlled setting, and those kind of things. The engine work will be also quite like simple, not with a lot of gymnastics or weightlifting, because that will be hammered by itself. And then after the 4 weeks of base phase, then I go into like an integration or a peak phase, where I then take all of the elements that I have tried to increase my capacity or strength or volume in, and then I put it all together for another pretty much 3 out of the 4 weeks. And then in the 4th week, that's the week leading up to the competition. And that all really depends on whether we know the events or not. If we know the events, I'll be doing intervals and testing and stuff of the events, keeping volume a little bit lower than usual, but intensity at the same level. So generally speaking, the taper will primarily be volume wise, but not intensity wise.
Do we know yet if they're going to announce the events ahead of time, or is it going to be on the day kind of thing?
I think they announced that they're going to, I'm pretty sure they're going to announce them 1 week ahead. I mean, we should get the floor plannings pretty soon, because that's going to be necessary as is an online competition.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, some people like me are doing them in their home gym, and, you know, maybe with the camera angle or stuff like that, some events won't be possible and I would need to have to go to the gym. So usually, you know, they probably tell us a little bit before, but regardless, it'll be fine. It's the same for everyone.
Mm-hmm. You talked about a bit of a base phase where you're going to separate the movements and the different elements a little bit more. How much of your overall work, and I know that's a big picture thing, but how much of your overall work is submaximal versus maximum intensity? If you take, maybe let's take this kind of competition season from the open all the way to, let's say the semis for you, maybe beyond, and then the rest of the year, the other half, how do you structure that in terms of submaximal and maximal work?
Well, I mean, it's very different from each of the categories, right? Like for weightlifting, I mean, for most of it is to be honest, submaximal. It depends like how we look at it. I think, so what do you mean exactly with submaximal and maximal? Like, because is submaximal 80% or is
Yes.
maximal maxing out all the time?
Submaximal, I guess we could say, you put a good question mark there. On the weightlifting, I guess we could say, I don't know, 90 is maybe heavy, 85, 90% as the threshold there. And then on the rest of the work, when you do mixed modal sessions, is it a 10 out of 10 RPE every time? Is it more interval based? Do you do, kind of 6, 7, 8 out of 10? Just to give an overall picture to people on, what kind of intensity do you use in training ongoing?
I mean, I pretty much use all of them. Like, so the way the week is structured, I'm not going to go like into full detail, but I'll be hitting 3 to 4 zone 2 pieces that last between 40 and 75 minutes. I'll do every second day. So that'll be like on day 1, 3, 5, and 7. I'll hit big, long zone 2 pieces. Most of them will be monostructural, either through running, biking, skiing, or rowing. And some will be more mixed modal. Then I'll have 3 to 4 pieces that are zone 4 to 5. In most of the season, that I will try to keep quite high volume of, which means I'll try to accumulate as many minutes as I can at a high intensity. So I'll make sure the session will be structured to allow me to pack as much volume in as possible, because capacity has been something that hasn't been my strong side. yeah, typically something shorter and more powerful has been in the past better. So I'm trying to definitely like develop just more work capacity. And then I don't do a lot of like full sprints. I mean, like in terms of like complete 20-second max on the bike, rest 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Like I do that leading up to competitions, but it's not something I do a lot of. I find that, yeah, that's just something that I naturally have a lot of, and I don't feel that I need to touch that system too often, because often in the end of those like threshold pieces I'll be doing, I will be very close to the max. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit complicated because I train 2-3 times a day, but that also allows me to hit most energy systems every week. It allows me to hit all gymnastics movements every week. It allows me to hit both the Olympic lifts. It allows me for 4 major strength sessions a week. So it's really not that easy to explain whether it's mostly sub-maximal or max. I mean, it's definitely mostly sub-maximal, but it just varies very much depending on if it's, the strength runs in 4-week cycles. So does the weightlifting. So does the gymnastics. The engine, that's a bit bigger picture things. Like the zone 2 base work, that's the same all year almost, except like when I'm leading right up to competition, and I'll just cut down on it a little bit.
Is that something you've always done that much of? Or is that something that kind of volume of low intensity work? Is that something that you find across all competitors at your level?
I really don't know. I don't pay too much attention to what the others are doing, but I just know that it's a necessity if you want to build a big engine. So I just think I've had some great coaches in the past that also has been very good at having me do this, and I've just continued since then, and it's been just a couple of years of doing it, and it will definitely always be a big part of my training.
Is it something that you maybe didn't have at some point and that you found really beneficial when you added in or when you started doing more?
Yeah, I had I think it was 2016 or 17, was having some really, like, I wasn't progressing at all, and it was just not going very well. And I decided to sort of change coaches, and the new coach, he had me wake up every morning and do zone 2 for like 20 to 30 minutes. And it was so easy. And I always asked him, I'm like, does this really do anything? He's like, just trust me. 20 to 30 minutes, 365, we're going to build an engine on you. And yeah, and I don't do it every day. I mean, well, that's a lie. I still do it. It's just, it alters right now between like 60 minutes. If I have to explain it short, I do like a 60 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I start the session with 20 minutes, zone 2. Then I have 40 to 60 minutes of intervals and stuff. So it's still pretty much every day. It just varies a bit in the volume.
Yeah, but besides this, and you talked about addressing your capacity a little bit, are there other things that other major components of your fitness overall that you've addressed maybe in the last 2 years that you feel have made you progress quite a bit?
Definitely my strength. Like, that's only been the past 5 months. I met this one strength coach who doesn't live far from me, and I asked him if he was able to help him or if I could hire him. And I kind of explained him, he understands what CrossFit is, and he's been doing a bit of CrossFit himself. And I told him what I can kind of allow him to fill in of my volume in training. You can have these 4 slots of 90 minutes, and I can't really dedicate more time to it, but that's like my limit. And then spoke about the season and my weaknesses and what's been going wrong in the past. And then I started with him, and he coached me once a week, and then delivered program the remaining the days. And that's just been a huge like boost for me. Strength has always been probably like, there's a lot of things that I'm not very good at, but that was definitely like one of the things I wasn't very good at all. And I'm far from being like great in it, but it's just for me personally, it's been a great progress, and I PB'd every weightlifting number and strength number, and my body, and most important of all, my body feels healthy. And And it's not that it's been feeling super unhealthy before, but I just think it's a common trait for like elite CrossFitters that, the body isn't feeling tip top. And I really want to do it for many years. I don't want to stop until I can't, until I'm forced to, so I know it's important that my body's feeling good. And his like strength and bodybuilding training has just been incredible for that. So I definitely think that's one thing that has changed a lot in my training, and that's something that's going to be a huge part of my training always from now on.
Was it something that you maybe didn't dedicate enough time to before, or were you just doing it and approaching it differently, which didn't lead to the result that you were after?
Yeah, I definitely think it was just a very different approach, like a way, way different approach. And I think a lot of CrossFitters, they find themselves in that scenario where they're following a new back squat cycle, and then they jump to the next back squat cycle, and they keep doing the same Russian back squat cycle, and they never really get through it because the percentages just, they're too aggressive, and then the knees hurt in week 4, and then you're supposed to be able to lift 5% heavier or 5 kilo heavier every week, and then it's just always only back squats or front squats or one of the major compound lifts, and you don't really look at what are the muscles in the legs that help you squat. And squatting is not the only way to get stronger at squatting. And I honestly just stopped squatting much. So I'd max squat once a week, and the rest of the days was just accessory. The strength coach would kill me if I said accessory exercises, because it's not accessory, and it's not less compound exercises either. It's just different exercises and a very different approach, and that's just changed everything. Probably like I put like 15 kilos on my back squat, and I over 12 weeks, and I'd maybe back squatted 9 times in the 12 weeks. The rest of the times I just done different split squats and hamstring curls and leg extensions and glute bridges and calf raises and stuff like that. And I hadn't been over 150 on the back squat for those 12 weeks. We've just been doing a lot of, the secret is really in the execution of the movements and in the way it's programmed. And he's just extremely good at that. And that was just, he looked at where the sticky points were and started understanding what was necessary in order to remove them. And 12 weeks later, I put a 200 kilos back squat. That's 50 kilos above anything that I was used to think that my nervous system would need. Nervous system needs to be able to touch, close to 100% in order to adapt and to get that stimulus in order to get stronger. But for that wasn't the case here. And what was even better is that it allowed me to push really hard in the weightlifting. Because if you follow squat cycle 3-4 times a week, and you're gonna get beat up, what about the other days? You need to do squat snatches and squat cleans and wall balls and thrusters, and you need to run maybe 30K a week, and it's a lot of just pounding on the knees. And so if you can limit that volume by doing maybe half the volume on the squats and half the other volume and leg extension, leg curls, you're just better off in terms of, maybe your health or, So, this guy's named Casper Winder. It's not a sponsored partnership or anything. He's just a great coach, and I'm super thankful that I've met him.
Yeah. So you talk about a very kind of well-rounded approach, instead of the very narrow, like you said, only front squat, only back squat. And like you mentioned as well, that's going to allow you to hit parts of your body or emphasize, muscle groups or movements that you wouldn't otherwise do if you were just doing a squat and just doing a front squat. And again, just kind of repeating what you said, but the sport of CrossFit is so squat centric and squat heavy that if you, on top of all that squatting, do more and more squatting, then at some point something's gonna stick.
Exactly. And it's just also, since doing all the bodybuilding and stuff, all small nickels and in stuff that was bugging me, classic front side of the shoulder, a little bit bicep tendon, and for CrossFitters, or the knees or whatever, all that just gone. Like my warm-ups were cut in half also because my body was just, I mean, his theory is like if you need to do 40 minutes of mobility before you start like back squatting, like there's something wrong. You should essentially be able to just take the bar and empty bar and just get a few reps, and then 20 is on. And in the beginning that was just impossible. And I I had to do so much prep work but since doing so much just like bodybuilding and stuff, it's just really made my body feel way better. And it's for everything, gymnastics as well. And yeah, so that's just super nice.
It's,
So I
it's
definitely recommend to anyone.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned this. I chatted with Ben Simmons, who's on the UK bobsleigh team for
Okay.
the third Olympic cycle in a row, and he was saying that essentially the more general work you can include in your program, the less soft tissue work you're going to need. And on the other side, if you don't have time or you can't do all the general work, then the soft tissue work, the manual therapy is very important because it is going to help you stay fit and healthy. So it seems to run parallel with what you say here. More bodybuilding, which is in essence very general compared to your sport, allows you to maintain a healthy body and keep training hard.
Yeah.
Is soft tissue and recovery something that you do quite a bit? Do you have someone that you work with on that side of things?
I should never get any treatments. Like, I mean, never, knock on wood, right? But no, I rarely. Sometimes my fiance, she does some massage work. My dad is actually, he has an education in that as well. So if I feel beat up or something like that, then definitely I'll get that done. But it doesn't happen very often. I will do it myself just with a cross ball and a foam roller, depending on feel. But it's something that I've been doing less and less of, and because I don't feel the need for it too much.
Mm-hmm.
I do, like I have something called Your Boots. It's like Normatec.
Mm-hmm.
I use them every night, and those do help make my legs feel better. And yeah, definitely. Just, I mean, it's again, since the bodybuilding and since also taking over my own programming, and it's just it's easy to stay in control of the things and feel what I can handle, and also just get more and more years of CrossFit. You learn more and more about yourself, and you learn what you can handle and where you can push, and I definitely feel there's less and less need for it, but it could change. But definitely for now, there's I don't remember last time I got a treatment.
That's excellent. How do you manage programming for yourself? I can imagine it mustn't always be easy, because we obviously have to remove that bias of just wanting to do the things that we like or that we're good at or that we enjoy doing. How do you get over this to program for yourself?
I love programming. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a bit, you can get geeky with it, and I've always enjoyed that aspect. I only started programming for myself 1.5 years ago. If not, I always had individualized coaches, and I follow a few generic programs since I started. But I don't really have that issue with the biases, because I've always had no real emotions attached to whether I like doing one thing or another. Like, my dream is to become one of the best, so I don't really care what it is I need to do. And I like training, so it doesn't matter if it's weightlifting or strength or gymnastics or running and I don't dislike something just because I'm not good at it. That just fires me up, because I know that's where I can, gain the margin and make myself better and get more points. And that's, yeah, so that's definitely not an issue. I think it can be, in the beginning when I was doing it, I was always a little bit afraid of doing too little or too much, or sometimes in a day-to-day when you've maybe made a Metcon that was perhaps you doubt if it was too tough to complete, and you maybe doubt your ability to program. But that was mainly the first like 6 months, and after that I started feeling more comfortable and more confident in my abilities. And I mean, I have mapped out everything I've been doing since 2015, and I have all the programs and templates from the coaches I've been been working with. So I can use some of those things if that work for me, if I feel that, oh, I'm not sure about this, or yeah. So, but I mean, I bring in experts for things that I don't feel that I'm capable enough to. Maybe, yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm not a brilliant guy. I still have so much to learn, and I'm also very young, and I spend a lot of time training, and I don't have a lot of time to study, and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not an amazing coach. Like I'm so far from where I want to be with that, but it's gonna take years, and I keep learning. But there's people that are way smarter than me, so I bring in a strength coach, and I brought in a triathlon coach, and I like to to learn from everybody, and I think that's my education, right? Is to work with people who are very smart and specialist in their field, and then my job is to know how I can implement that in a weekly training structure, because that's what they can't do, because it's hard to know how to put things together if you're not doing it yourself. I find it's very difficult to put you can get a great strength program and a great triathlon, like a great engine program and etc. But putting it all together is where that's where the whole magic is a little bit. So yeah.
How do you make the difference between when you've programmed something for yourself and then you go out and do it? How do you determine if something goes wrong? How do you determine whether it was the programming or the execution?
I mean, I would say there's not often something goes wrong. Like sometimes I could have programmed like the other day I programmed a little bit too deficit strict handstand push-ups in a workout, and in my head I thought it was no problem, but I couldn't do 100 deficit handstand push-ups at 12 inches in a workout. Like that was too extreme, but I still pulled it through, and I saw it as a challenge. Sometimes you can get on the competition floor and you stand there and like you're getting no reps, or you hit a roadblock and you have to pull it home. If not, you're not going to continue in the competition. So if it ever happens, I always see it as an opportunity just to like kind of control my mind and be like, all right, we're gonna one rep at a time, we're gonna finish this. But I've been programming for the past 6 years, so it's usually the volume and intensity is quite well thought through, and yeah, there's not very often that mistakes are made in that sense. But a lot of the training also somehow auto-regulated in terms of like, if it's an AMRAP, it can't really be too tough, right? Like, or if like I rarely have percentages on my lifts, or unless it's sub-maximal stuff. But so you can always just adjust it day to day, so it doesn't happen very often.
You talked about taking from other great coaches that are specialists in different disciplines. Who have been your biggest influences when it comes to the way that you see programming and then program day to day?
There's been a few, like in CrossFit specifically, it's been Phil Mansfield, who is the guy who founded Red Pill Training. He's a great role model of mine, and we used to work together, and like he definitely taught me a lot of principles that I still use today and will always be using. And he just his approach with coaching, and how he was kind of treating me and how he was acting, and that's just things I definitely think after him I could never get another coach. I think that'd be very, very difficult, because he set the standard very high, and not just from a programming perspective. It's mostly from the other aspects, the way someone is around you, and you want to work hard for a person. It just takes a different, like the charisma a coach needs to have for different athletes is just that's just hard to replicate. And it's not always about genius programming. So definitely Phil Mansfield, he's a great coach. And then from strength perspective, this guy Kasper Winter, who's a Danish guy, he's incredible at what he does, and he's taught me a lot, and he keeps helping me, and he's extremely supportive, and he's definitely going to play a major influence in this year and in the coming years for me. That's for sure.
If you had to describe your approach to programming, how do you see it overall for CrossFit specifically? How do you break down all the different categories, the priorities, and then put it all together? Obviously, in a fairly broad sense, because I'm sure we could take 3 days to talk about this in detail.
I think the first thing is that I think if more of principles instead of methods. That's like the first thing I've learned the last couple of years, or the most important things, is that the principles are what's key, and it's not the specifics of the program. That when I say specifics, like if I'm rowing or running, that's less important as long as it's zone 2. Of course, like if one of them is a major weakness, you want to spend more time on one. But again, energy systems is energy systems, and the same with like movement patterns. Squat pattern is a squat pattern, whether it's a wall pull or row, lower body. And like if I try to develop let's say for a thruster rowing workout, I look at lower body endurance and I look at the energy systems, and then I work on those separately. So if wall ball row was a weakness, I would go twice a week or to have like a 30 to 60 minute lower body workout. And that could be, 40 wall balls, 30 walking lunges with dumbbells, 20 dumbbell step ups, 10 tuck jumps, whatever, 50 cal bike. And I'll just repeat that, just pure lower body, just getting thousands of repetitions in of just pure knee flexion. And I would do the same for the upper body. Like I sucked in the wall climb workout twice a week now. I have like 30-minute AMRAPs of just pure upper body endurance. It doesn't need to be wall climb specifically, because it's maybe not the wall climb in itself, but it's taking that step back and looking at, okay, maybe shoulder endurance is the issue. And then it has carryover to everything with shoulder endurance. Doesn't matter if it's wall climbs or shoulder to overhead or handstand push-ups. It's just, again, the method is the principle, and it's a little bit that kind of step back of looking at, if snatch is an issue, is it technical, or is it just, you're just not very strong? Do you need to snatch more? You need to do more strength? Like sometimes taking that step back is just what I do. That's the way I look at it, at least. So it's less specific. But I mean, how I do it, yourself, programming is complicated. It's not, I can't just explain it in a very simple term, but I definitely look at the different energy systems as one of the first thing. I look at the different modalities. I break it into weightlifting, which is the Olympic lifts. Then I break it into another category, which is strength, which is, squat, press, pull, and then all of the, let's call it accessory, vertical, horizontal pulling, and more quad dominant, more hamstring dominant exercises, more glute dominant exercise, et cetera. And then gymnastics, which is all the gymnastic movements, and then energy systems and engine, basically. And then I just make sure that every week I'm touching base on pretty much all of the elements. And then my training it pretty much runs in those 2 cycles of base cycle and integration cycle. So we build and we put it in. We build and we put it in, and pretty much all year it cycles through that. Sometimes the base is longer and the integration is shorter, all depending on where I'm in the season and what hole I'm trying to close. But I would say that all of the 4 aspects, they can run a little bit separate journeys. I can be focusing on volume and gymnastics, and then I can focus on high intensity and strength, or I could be primarily building my run and zone 2 work, while the weightlifting is focusing on something differently. So they can run a little bit different tracks, but in the peak phase they all kind of run together.
Do you have key sessions or kind of benchmark sessions that you use either ongoingly or sporadically to kind of test yourself on different parameters to see if you've improved, or is it always specific to the quality that you're trying to develop in that block, and you maybe have a before and after test that is going to be specific to that quality?
Actually, very rarely test, to be honest, and I don't really have any benchmarks that I'm aiming for or like trying to retest after 8 weeks. And it's not that specific, the training. It's not like I do a ring muscle up cycle and try to see how many ring muscle ups I can do. In the strength, neither really. Yeah, not really. Like it doesn't always, it always works in linear progressions, but doesn't always lead to a retest. If that makes sense. So it can be building up weekly, but it doesn't mean that I'm gonna test it out every time. But automatically, if in the next cycle I will put heavier weights, and I'll know I've gotten stronger.
Yeah, I was
And the
going to
same
say throughout the training process, training is an assessment in and of itself, and you can kind of judge your progress over time with this,
exactly.
rather than having to test and retest.
Exactly. And I don't do a lot of like single modality tests anymore. I used to do a lot of that in the past. Like, I don't often test my 5K row or watt test, or I've been doing a lot of that in the past. And in the off season, I will tend to be more focused on those kind of things because there's less tests of fitness, and those will be good parameters to use. But in the season, I mean, the only test that really matters is how I stack up against the rest, because that is the only way to measure them. That is the most important way to measure, because everybody gets better, and it's lovely if I'm getting better too, but I need to get better than the others at a faster rate. Because if I want to catch someone, who the day I started CrossFit had already been to the CrossFit Games twice, and they're still competing, and they're still young, and they're still fit, then I need to get better than them every year. And if they're already so much better, then yeah, then I really need to work my ass off.
That makes sense. How did you find CrossFit at first?
I used to play American football for 8 years. I also did some grappling when I was an exchange student in the States. And the off-season training, we used a lot of like CrossFit methods, you could say. And back squat, bench press, and deadlifts were always like a key element, and sled pushes and those kind of box jumps. And so I guess there's always been some sort of CrossFit preparation in the training I've been doing since I was 15. But I started it for real when I moved to the senior team when I was like 20 years old, I think. And all my friends stopped playing American football, and I'd had some obstacles with also American football, and my dream was to make it to the next stage, but it wasn't really going to work out. Probably also because I wasn't never good enough, or perhaps would never be good enough, but that was definitely never going to keep me from trying. But yeah, in the off season, we started just using CrossFit methods in that year. And I realized I really liked it. And there was one of the guys from the team who was Frederick Egidius, and he was full-time CrossFitter. And yeah, just, this kind of spoke to me. And I've always played team sports, but one thing I always dreaded and hated is that when everybody didn't want it as bad as I wanted it. And, I didn't drink alcohol, and I went early to bed, and I did all my off-season training. And if everybody else didn't do it, that could just make me nuts. And so I just found that, you can compete in a sport. You don't need anybody but yourself. And like, it's just self-discipline. It's just hard training. And yeah, that just suited me really well. And then I basically actually just stopped American football from that day. And just try to figure out what it took to compete in the sport, and I've never looked back since. And I was supposed to study after school and everything, and I just decided that this is what I want to do. And I also love coaching, which is also a huge benefit, because that also allows me to pursue this career for as long as I want. And I, on the other side of being an athlete, I can do something I also really love, which is coaching and helping people. And I'm also doing that right now, but I'm not doing it to my full capacity simply because I can't. Because if I want to be a pro athlete, that's now or never. But being a full-time and a very professional coach, which is something I really want to do, but that's something I've had to just cut back on a little bit, and say I'm gonna have to save that for a little bit later when I have more time. So yeah, I found it through American football and never looked back since.
The next one's a double question. The first one is, how has your vision changed? Your vision of CrossFit changed over the years since you started, and also parallel to this, how did the sport of CrossFit change since you started?
I don't really think my vision changed with the sport. Like, it's still the same good old, like, I found the sport for the first time in 2014, where regionals was hosted in Ballerup in Denmark. And yeah, I just always dreamed of being on the floor there. And I think it's the same. Nothing has really changed for me. It's the same sport, it's the same vision, it's the same dreams. And the season has changed a lot of times, but it's still the same, goal to find the fittest. And I hope to be part of that one day. And yeah, if the sport has changed, I mean, the organization has definitely changed, and the format of the season has changed many times. But to be honest, like, I never really put any thoughts or emotions into, again, whether I like the programming, whether I like the season format, or how they do things, or because it doesn't really matter to me. I've decided I want to try to be a professional CrossFit athlete, and so I follow along what they do, and because it's their organization. Like, if you play soccer and you play in Champions League, you follow the rules of the team and the league and the format, and you have no say in it, or it doesn't really matter also if you have a say. Like, you're an athlete and you do the sport, and yeah.
Talking about the professional aspect of being a CrossFit athlete, do you feel like there's still room for improvement there? Especially if we compare, obviously it's a very young sport in the grand scheme of things, but if we compare it to other sports that have maybe a bit more structure around their athletes to allow them to be full-time, to dedicate full-time training to their sport. What do you feel are the next steps going in that direction for you guys, for the athletes in the grand scheme of CrossFit?
I mean, obviously, the more sponsors and the more prize money gets involved, the more athletes can go full time, which means that they just eat, sleep, train. And I think that is kind of the next step for the majority of people. And I think a lot of people are full time right now with okay sponsorships that pay the bills, and I think that's really cool to see. Not just top five. I mean, top five, they live very good, I'm sure. But I think right now we're looking at, there's probably a top 30, top 40, top 50 athletes that can live off the sport. And is it a great living? No, but it's you can actually just train full time, because if you get 2,000-3,000 euros a month from 4 or 5 different sponsors together, that's okay. Like, that's enough for you don't pay gym membership, and you get free clothing, and you have a supplement sponsor, and maybe you have a food sponsor, then the rest is almost pocket money and rent money. And so I definitely think the more sponsors and that can get involved, the more people can go pro, because to be pro, I definitely think that needs to be what you do. So the way I see it is, of course you should be able to make money off it to be a pro athlete. And that's still what's definitely missing for me. I don't make any money off the sport directly, at least for competitions, maybe indirectly through programming and that kind of stuff. That's also because there's also not many brands that you want to associate yourself with. I think, if you don't need to, at least there's not that many amazing brands maybe involved in the sport currently that we see in other sports. So yeah, I think more money for athletes to do training as the majority of their job. That needs to be the thing they do most. So if they coach, that's also fine, but they need to be training more hours than they're coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the programs that you offer? You said your company is called No Shortcuts, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what type of programs do you offer? You talked about individualized and generic ones. So who are those targeted to, and how does it work?
So for the generic programming, that's where we have the majority of the clients, and that's a CrossFit competitor program. So it's for either the aspiring CrossFit athlete that want to compete, or for the already competing athlete who wishes to take his or her training to the next level. We have when I say we, it's because me and my fiance, and we also have a guy who's helping us with it. And so that's why I say we. We have a 2-a-day program. We have a 1-a-day program. A lot of the training is similar to what I'm doing. Obviously now I'm prepping for the semifinals. So it's a bit different in that aspect. And I have a bit more individual touches to my own training. But if not, it is a lot of the same stuff and the same workouts and the same base work, and a lot of similarities from strength as well. So the 2 and the 1-a-day, they have the same main session. So the 2-a-day simply has 5 extra engine pieces in the morning, and the 1-a-day has the same main session as the session 2 program. We have 3 levels for all workouts, and the program is extremely scalable. So if there's an elite, there's an RX, an intermediate level. And yeah, so it's pretty much for anyone who wishes to compete or is already competing in the sport. Then there's the individual aspect, and that's quite broad actually. There I have athletes that are very high level, like semifinals, games on team level. And then I also have people who actually just train 3 times a week and just, wishes to stay fit and just want that day-to-day communication and feedback on videos and that kind of stuff. But we are expanding with another coach soon, because there is a very large demand for people who want to have individualized coaching, regardless of their ambitions and dreams. Actually, I used to think that it was primarily for the clients who had really, really large ambitions of becoming top level athletes, but it actually shows that a lot of the day-to-day, small intermediate RX competitors, they're really keen on getting individualized, and it actually makes total sense because they have busy lives and they need a program that is time efficient and fits their schedule and fits the equipment of that gym they go to, or if they have equipment at home they can also use on some days, or when they go on holiday, or so it's primarily CrossFit programming.
If you had a piece of advice to share with coaches who try to be the best coaches that they can be, but still want to compete and give their best on the floor, what would you advise to them?
So for coaches who also want to be athletes at the same time, I mean, be time efficient and make sure to control everything around training. I think a lot of the secrets lie in good supplementation, good sleep, good nutrition, those kind of things. You can't really outwork, a bad diet or less hours of sleep. So it's key to ensure that the day is structured as good as possible for that. And I know that's not easy when you're a CrossFit coach, because you open the gym at 6 a.m. in the morning and you finish the last class at 8 p.m. at night or 9 p.m. So yeah, to really get the most bang for the buck, I think it comes down to really having maybe a midday nap, having very good fuel, because that's just going to be key for you to get those 2 sessions in a day. And it's going to be necessary to have 2 sessions a day to be competitive. Now, if you want to be competing at very small local competitions, definitely think 1 session a day is all you need. But the level is just increasing so rapidly that if you can't put two a day in, then I just think at least the expectations needs to be lowered, because there's more and more people who are becoming very good at CrossFit. There's more and more people who are figuring out their nutrition and their supplements and are, training a lot more than the people used to do a couple of years back. And that's also what we're seeing with everybody's strength and like weightlifting numbers. So many like people you've never heard of that just in open gym snatch 120. And like, they're just, it's just back in the day, it used to be you could snatch 100. You're good at snatch. If you can't do Isabel at 100 kilos in under 3 minutes or 4 minutes, then like you have an issue now. So yeah, so I just think like managing the things outside of training is really going to be important. And I think that's definitely for most maybe where they can improve like more on, like getting more calories, getting better supplementation, more sleep, those kind of things. I really think are, especially for the next step, is going to be very important.
André, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about who you are and what you do?
I think the easiest is on my name, André Houdet on Instagram, or no shortcuts _team on Instagram. That's the primary platforms that I use.
Perfect. I'll link those in the description of the podcast. So for everybody listening or watching, make sure you go give André a follow and say hi. It was great to have you on, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for having me.